Episode 99 already? Where did this podcast come from anyway? Today we're going to take a look back at the history of the podcast and the Faith and Family Filmmakers Association. And here's an exciting milestone. Not only are we approaching our 100th episode, but today we introduce a brand new host. Stay tuned.
This is the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast, helping filmmakers who share a Christian worldview stay in touch, informed, and inspired. Quiet on set. Rolling. Your hosts, Jeffrey and Jacqueline Witt.
Welcome to the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jacqueline.
And today we have a return guest, Matt Chastain.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Well, the other side of that story is Matt is going to be a new host on the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast. And we are excited to be adding him to the roster, shall we say?
Hey, I'm pumped, guys. I love what you guys are doing. And I know you guys are building something much bigger than just a podcast. And so you've only got so much time on your hands to do all the things to pull this whole association together. So if I can kind of step in from time to time and help you guys lead amazing conversations, then I am more than happy and honored to do that.
Well, we interviewed Matt early on in the podcast. I forget which episode it was. I should have looked that up. But what we do remember, it was an exciting interview. We really appreciated your
candor. I bared my soul
exactly.
to you.
Yeah.
Well, you did that.
I'm going to tell you all the things that go wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you were also very enthusiastic about the podcast itself.
Yeah.
And of course, that's part of what prompted us. When we wanted to invite another host into our podcast, it made us think of you. We were only a few episodes in, and you spoke of the podcast as if it was really, really exciting. You were like a big fan, and who makes a better host than somebody who's actually a fan of the podcast?
There you go.
You gotta love what you do.
I love what you guys are doing because, look, we all know that in terms of ways we learn to be on set, whether as a newbie or a rookie or an experienced filmmaker, there's no better way to learn filmmaking than to be on set. I think Miss Peggy was talking about that in one of your most recent podcasts, just get on set. But if you're not on set, I think the next best thing is hearing, experienced filmmakers, intelligent, creative filmmakers have conversations, real conversations about filmmaking, about their experience and their advice. And that's really exciting because it kind of gives you that same spark you get when you're on set, when you're just talking about being on set. I mean, my old line is making movies is way better than not making movies. But talking about making movies is kind of a close second.
Right. All right, so give us a quick update. Where are you at since the last time we spoke on this podcast?
I'm in the same chair, exactly the same seat. I haven't left really very, very much. It's been a great year. It's been the reason you reached out to me is because you had seen a movie that I made in the past, Small Group, the movie. Cheap plug right here. If anyone listening has not seen Small Group, it's on Amazon Prime. I'd love for you to go check it out. It's on several other outlets as well. I don't know. The distributor handles that. Thank you, Chris Bueno with Ocean Avenue. He takes care of all that for us. But, my kids and I, one of our favorite things to do is to sit down and they say, Dad, share a 90s movie with us. They like the old 80s and 90s movies. We like to watch Back to the Future and Indiana Jones, all the old Adam Sandler movies. Their favorite is Mrs. Doubtfire. And for me, those movies just kind of hold up decades later just fine. And in fact, my kids like them better than a lot of the modern movies. And so that's kind of, at this point, it's been quite a few years since we made Small Group, even though we only released it digitally and back in 2020. It's been a long time since we made it. So we're hoping that it holds up for people the same way those movies hold up for my family and I. And I think it does. We get messages every day that people have seen it and where was this? Why didn't I see this? And that's another story for another episode as to why, but we hope you do.
Jacqueline and I had seen it prior to having you on the podcast, of course. In fact, that's how we found you. We reached out to you because we had seen the movie and we really liked it. Really, really well done. And I encourage anyone listening who hasn't seen it, go find it. Small Group, the movie.
Yes, thank you so much. But you know what? Enough about me, guys. Let's talk about you. That's what I'm interested in. When you guys called me a couple of weeks ago and we talked about this idea of my coming in and kind of helping to host, I was glad that you pitched to me that let's interview you guys because that was going to be my first idea. I want to know more about you. I'm interested in what you were doing. I'm interested in this because it does seem like it's more than a podcast. It's now the Faith and Family Filmmakers Association. But it even started out kind of, it didn't start out as a podcast, right? It started back kind of in 2023 at the Screenwriting Academy. Tell me a little more about that.
Well, first of all, I'm going to pause for a moment in that line of conversation and tell you part of the reason why you're interviewing us right now is because our next episode, which is released tomorrow, will be our 100th episode. That's why we decided at this time it would be an appropriate time to perhaps do a recap in this episode of where we've come from. And tomorrow, in our 100th episode, talk about where we're heading in the coming year.
So this is 99.
This is 99.
You guys have done 99 episodes already.
Since February.
Crazy.
That is unreal.
So crazy.
Yeah, I think I've said this before. I think it's 99% of podcasts don't make it past 10 episodes.
It's a lot of work.
And of those who do, then 99% of those don't make it past 20. I'm saying it off the top of my head this time, but it's close to those numbers. So we're in the 1% like months ago.
I knew that about you. You guys, hey, you may have 99 problems, but producing a podcast ain't one.
Nice.
Is that okay on a Christian podcast?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
I'm sorry.
All right, so I will...
I'm going to get in trouble, I promise you guys. You're going to fire me before the next episode.
No, we're good. So I do want to actually touch on the question you brought up. So where we started, we actually started our business called the Family Friendly Screenwriting Academy because screenwriting was what I knew. And so I was like, let's dive into that. I want to help people to write better movies. And, family friendly, I kind of figured that'll include faith, and I was kind of just thinking we'll do that. But then as we continued throughout that first year, we started to realize that we want to be more specific where it is about faith and family. But we really wanted to emphasize that faith is where our heart is. And so then, we rebranded to be the Faith and Family Filmmakers Association. I don't remember if it was at the end of 2023 or the beginning of 2024, somewhere around there.
Point.
Yeah. But during that first year, we started a peer review screenwriting festival. We had a few rounds of those, and it was a lot of fun where writers would submit their work and then they would agree to read the work of 3 other writers and give them feedback for it. So it was quite an involved festival. It wasn't something where you just submit something, forget about it, and see if you win something. Like there was actually work involved, but it was such valuable work because when you have to put on that different hat of right now I'm analyzing a screenplay, it really changes how you think. And it helps you to be able to look at your own work differently. So it was really valuable. The problem was it was very difficult because, some people submitted, but they didn't realize that they had to do the work. And so then at like the last minute, they're like, oh, no, I don't want to do this. I'm like, well, somebody else already did the work on yours. Like you can't just back out. You checked the box that you understand you have to do this. And so anyways, it did become a lot of work. And I think it's something that we will bring back in the future. We did decide to set that aside for a time because we needed to build our business in the areas that was working, right?
Did you find there was a lack of demand, especially young or inexperienced screenwriters wanting, notes? They don't understand that notes really are nuggets of gold, right? I'll give you a quick story. I was at ICFF one year and I saw this screenwriter approach an industry professional kind of in the hallways. And that industry professional, I think he had offered notes as part of some workshop. And she came up and just was arguing with him about the notes that he gave her. And I think a lot of times, I was probably guilty as well. We believe that God has blessed us with the ability to write the next great movie and that it's perfect when I submit it. And we're not open to critique because we don't view critique really as gold nuggets there to make our screenplays better.
Mm-hmm. There were a couple, but not so much because I think they went into it knowing that that's what it was going to be. And everybody had the same questions that they had to answer about all of the scripts. So it was a very formatted way of giving feedback. It wasn't just random.
Okay.
And so I think people had really good responses to it. But I do know what you mean. And for me, whenever people argue with me about the feedback that I've given them, I just remind them, it is your project in the end, right? Like you get to make your own choices about it. You asked me for my opinion. This is what I'm giving you. Make of it what you will. I'm not going to argue about it.
That's right. This is your piece. It's your baby. I'm just telling you if your baby's dressed ugly.
Well,
I told you guys I'm going to make you uncomfortable. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
You're allowed to say that. I won't say that.
So I'll just say about the Peer Review Screenwriting Festival, it started strong. We got such positive positive responses from people who participated.
That's great.
They really appreciated it. However, as we went on, the numbers actually decreased. I
I think
think
it's just because we ran it too frequently. Like that's part of business is figuring out
Figuring it out.
yeah, the pacing of
It's all
things.
trial and error.
Yeah, exactly. We had started out where we thought, oh, we should do one every 3 months because that way people who are working on stuff, they'll always have stuff that they can submit. Because if
Right.
they're a writer like me, they've got lots on the go, but maybe not everyone writes that much. I don't know. But anyways, so that's, I think, why it started to drop off because people got what they needed and then they didn't necessarily need it again. And so
Sure.
part of it, I think, is just pacing.
Yeah, I think you mentioned this earlier, but it's also very likely that there's a lot more people who just want to submit something and see if they win and not have to do that work. And that's fine. I'm not criticizing that. I'm just saying it's a whole different commitment to enter into something where you've got to work on other people's scripts and review them and write feedback. And we do get a whole lot more submissions to the Screenwriting Awards Festival than we were getting for the Peer Review Festival.
Well, life is work, and good scripts come from lots and lots of rounds of development. The next step then was the Faith and Family Filmmakers podcast, right?
Yeah. In the summer of 2023, we went to this business convention, I guess, because we're entrepreneurs. And so we need to educate ourselves. We need to network with other entrepreneurs. And so we did all of that kind of stuff. And so while we were at this convention, we ended up meeting with Michael Silvers, who is the head of the LA Tribune podcast network. Now, at the time, that did not exist. He was actually the one starting it. And so he had approached us. At that point, we had not even thought about doing a podcast. It was a thought that maybe crossed our mind on occasion as something where off in the future, maybe we'll do that one day kind of thing, right? So we didn't put really any real thought into it. But he approached us and he thought that our podcast would be something really interesting. It has to do with faith. It has to do with the film industry. And he thought, that's something that isn't really being done. And he thought it'd be a good fit for the LA Tribune podcast network that he was starting. And so we decided, sure, let's do that. And we actually felt really good about it, which was interesting because it was just an overnight thing where we were like, yeah, okay, let's do that. And they provided some training and support for us so that we were able to, go into it knowing what we're doing and not just kind of figuring out as we go. Because I think that that's probably why a lot of people end up quitting because there is a learning curve. And so with this, we were able to, have what we needed and we dove in. And because of that, actually, we were able to go into it prepared because we didn't launch with just one episode a week where we record it and then we air it and then we got to the next week do it all over again. So we came up with a method right from the start where we record basically 6 months worth of podcasts in about 2 months. And so then that allows us to do this. I mean, there's still editing, over the course of the 6 months, but we've got all of those interviews recorded. So, going into it from a business perspective where it's like, okay, I still need to do all the other things because the podcast does not actually pay our bills.
Right.
Not even remotely. So the podcast is a great way for us to be out there and to be connected and to interact. Exactly. Yeah. And so it's very valuable, but it's not something that pays our bills or puts food in our bellies. And so we have to be able to sustain it in a way that is not going to just throw us under the bus and say, sorry, you tried, but, now you don't get to eat.
Which is why they called me. Matt, can you do this podcast? Because it doesn't make any money. We need you to handle that so we can go. No, not at all. Well, I'll say this, as one of your early guests, I noticed from the beginning that I knew you had just started the podcast, and so you were new at it, but I noticed that you guys really had your act together. I could tell there was a system, even your communication system. Simple little things like that, you can tell when somebody has their act together, and that's why I think it has survived 99 episodes now, and we're moving into the 100th here pretty soon, but we don't have a lot of time left, so I do want to kind of go into some of the other things that you're offering. One of the things that's very interesting to me is you've teamed up with Alexandria Boylan, who obviously everybody knows she's incredibly prolific filmmaker, really knows her stuff. Her episode is great, by the way. I loved her episode. So, and with the VIP Producers Mentorship program. So tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, so I agree. Her episode was amazing. And she actually came and she taught at one of our screenwriting boot camps. And we just realized she has so much value and like she just knows so much stuff and she's able to present really well, but like it's all just kind of jammed into a small interview. And so I thought, if she had the opportunity to allow herself to stretch that out where she could really dive into the details of things, I bet she would have something amazing that people would want to learn. And I mean, I for one. And so I thought, I wonder if she would be interested in teaming up with me and doing this. And so I approached her and she was like, well, sure. Yeah, let's see how it goes if we get any interest. And I happened to be at CWVFF that week. And so I announced it saying, we're putting this together. And I had like instantly 20 people signing up saying, I want the details once you've got it figured out. Right. So yeah, we launched kind of a soft launch in August of 2024. And within 3 weeks, we had 9 people signed up. And then I think it was like a week or two later, we had another. And so it's kind of been every couple weeks, there's somebody else that's joining. But like we haven't even really had the opportunity to do very much of a marketing campaign. And so I can't even imagine.
Maybe because you don't need it. When a product's that good, you don't need it. Look,
if
you're an aspiring filmmaker and you're serious about it and you don't go seek counsel and guidance and consultation from those who know what they're doing, you are putting your project at major risk. So it's a risk mitigation and a way to make sure your film is successful when you bring in consultants who've done it before. That's just That's business 101 right there.
Mentorship is one of those things where you want to learn from someone who has already been where you want to be because they've already made all those mistakes or they've learned what works or what doesn't, and they can give you that direction. So all of the work that goes into being a producer, you still have to do all of that work, right? We don't do the work for anyone, but we do help them to understand what work needs to be done and where to avoid certain traps or pitfalls and things like that. And just understanding, like, in order to be a producer, you have to learn these kinds of skills. Okay, here's how you can learn those skills. And so, it is very much like a hands-on mentorship kind of thing. But I always tell anybody that talks to me about the course, I'm like, just being clear, though, you still have to do the work because producing is a lot of work. There's no way to get out of it.
You're exactly right about that. There was a song we used to like in high school. It's a weird alternative rock song called Sharks Patrol These Waters. And that's the best way I can describe the film industry. Even the faith film industry is full of sharks. And I'm not saying just bad people. I'm just saying it's full of pitfalls that you can fall right into. And so I think one of the best jobs of a producer is avoiding those pitfalls that can sink your project because they're everywhere. So
Content Christian Media Conference is hosting a one-day event on Monday, February 24th at Prestonwood Baptist Church in Plano, Texas. It's one amazing day of fellowship, networking, screenings, panels, and inspirational keynotes. There'll be breakouts on filmmaking, storytelling, writing, distribution, and more, with lunch included. It's perfectly timed, just before the start of NRB. Register at ChristianMediaConference.com. You can find the link in the show notes. Register now and get early bird pricing until December 31st. Join us for Content One Day Christian Media Summit, Monday, February 24th, for filmmakers, actors, screenwriters, podcasters, authors, distributors, and you.
Another thing, speaking of legends like Alexandra, there's another legend, Gene Wenger, that you guys have teamed up for the table read program. I was honored to participate in one of your table reads, a virtual table read, which was something I'd never done before. And that was a really, really unique and cool experience. So talk to me a little bit about that program.
Okay, so it actually started with me. I have my own scripts and I really wanted to have a table read. I think I had attended someone else and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And so I pulled some people together for, actually I had asked Venus Monique to produce a table read of one of my scripts. And so she had done that. And so I loved it.
She's a star of Vindication, for those who don't know.
Yes.
Among other things.
And so then after that, I ended up meeting Jean at a festival in Florida. And she was like, oh, yeah, I think that'd be fun. I could help you put together a table read. And so then I ended up connecting with her and, giving her my list of characters that I'm looking for, all the breakdown and everything. And so then together we kind of talked through what to do. And So she did most of the work on that one. And then the next one, I started doing more of the work. And so I was learning as I went and kind of taking on more of the responsibility as I was working with other people who knew what they were doing, as this is going to be a theme. And so then I ended up learning how to do this and then kind of putting my own little flair into it and just realizing like, actually, we could make this a win for everyone. Like initially, it felt like it was a win for me because I was the writer and I had all these actors that came together to read my script. And so it kind of felt like it was all about me. But then I realized if I invite key people to the table read that these actors can get in front of, that benefits them also. So then I started inviting producers. And I mean, Jean came to almost all of my table reads. And so obviously for those that didn't have representation, well, Jean was there and she took notice of a few people that were in the table reads. And one of the producers that saw one of my table reads, and he even saw the recording of it. He wasn't even there live, but he saw the recording, totally fell in love with the whole process. But one of the actors really stood out to him. He ended up hiring that actor to work on another project and then another project. Like they're currently working together in Texas on a project. Like
that's how it works.
Yeah. And so what I discovered was that the way that I was bringing people in and doing my best to create value on as many angles as possible, it really ended up creating the value that we were looking for. And so the actors are just so excited to be part of it, which it just warms my heart because I'm just so excited to hear these scripts read. Now, I kind of did all of this learning with my own scripts. And so now I'm branching out and I'm doing other people's scripts. But for those that want to be an actor in the table read, we have a table read group on, like you got to join and become a member and then go look under the groups section and you can find actors table read group. And if you're a writer, you can join the writers table read group. And we're going to actually be posting videos in each of those groups to teach the people in those groups how to make the most of this program. So people are also going to be learning skills and not just having an opportunity to be in on a table read.
That's what I think a lot of people really love about what you guys are doing. It really is innovative. I mean, you're approaching the filmmaking craft the right way by making these associations, learning from people who know better than us, but you're clearly innovating it as well. Now, look, if we had my way, this would be like a Joe Rogan 3-hour conversation, but I know that's not the format of this show. So there are other things that you could talk about, member groups, the FAFF Association Directory, member features, intern program. Talk about just all the other features of the Faith and Family Film Association before we sign off for the day.
Sure.
Let's talk about membership for a moment. Membership is free. And you can join. The instructions are on our homepage. In fact, you can just click, I think it says join now at the top.
I'm going to do that right now because I haven't actually joined.
Okay.
While you're talking, go ahead.
Okay, go for it. So as an association, our mission is really to support and empower the faith and faith-adjacent filmmaking community to thrive in their God-given gifts, talents, and callings. And as Jacqueline mentioned earlier, when we first started focusing on the word family-friendly, that certainly included faith for us. In fact, the focus was that. But we found that people weren't really understanding the true focus of what we were doing. And so when we say faith and faith adjacent, we're certainly not working with people who are only working on specifically faith-based content.
Explain faith adjacent. That's interesting.
Well, let me for a second go to our definition of family-friendly.
Sure, sorry.
Because family-friendly was something that was actually confusing some people. And people were assuming, for example, entering one of our screenwriting festivals, that family-friendly was requiring it to be something suitable for kids, something suitable for the whole family, a movie that the whole family would watch together. And, there's certainly room for faith content that is not for kids. There's certainly room for faith content, and we're seeing more and more of it these days. That is important stories, important messages that are really not G-rated.
Yeah.
Because there's real life. There's real life in the Bible that we hear about and read about, and there's real life that happens that we actually need to talk about that may not be suitable for kids.
God honoring is really what it comes down to. And same with faith adjacent. Like it doesn't have to talk about faith in it, but it is still God honoring. And so that's how to explain faith adjacent.
So as an association, we provide classes and workshops and online festivals. We're adding networking events and more table read opportunities for both actors and screenwriters and pitching opportunities and a whole lot more to develop your skills and build relationships and to get your projects done with excellence. And that's our goal. So as an association, as I said, it's free to join. And our directory gives you an opportunity to create a profile. And we can contact the people in our directory for table reads, for example, if you're an actor. Writers might set up their own table reads as we give training in that, and they might want to contact actors that are in the association as well.
Yeah, you're setting up a network.
That's just an example. Of course, producers in the membership can look at the directory to find potential cast for their projects. And there's just so much more in the directory: colorists, editors, makeup artists, and any range of roles in the film industry.
And if you have a role that you don't see on our list, contact us because we don't know everything. And so we made a list that we could think of, these are all of the things, but we could have easily missed some. So don't be offended.
It sounds like you might be a really good resource for line producers as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. And we do have a line producer role, and this directory is searchable. So you can search by a number of different things, including role, if you're looking for something specific. So we encourage everyone to join, create a profile in our directory, and we look forward to working with you.
Yeah. To sum up 2024 with getting to where we are today, near the end of 2024, what we have done is figured out or discovered the vision and gotten clarity in where God is leading us in this whole thing. And so we are here to support the entire faith-based film industry, or like the people who are in the film industry who are Christians. And we do that through education, networking opportunities, and the podcast. So in order for all of that to really work, we have to have people who want it. And so this is kind of where the directory has come in so that we could bring in those people. So the more people that we have, the more we're going to be able to actually offer. So anybody who's seen what we've been doing so far, they can see the value that we bring. So the more that is brought in to us that we can work with, the more that we actually can produce. Like, I love that we started working with interns because what we've done so far was just basically Jeff and I, and it was a lot of work. And so it's nice that now we can actually work with people who are working in their element. They are shining in what God has given them to do. And, we work out what that looks like for both sides to get value. But I'm so excited with the interns. So this is no longer being built just by Jeff and I. Like, there are multiple people who are making it happen. And that, I think, is where it's going to really shine and where God is going to be able to really be glorified.
You guys are building a community, basically. And it seems to me that the word that pops in my head is development. You guys are really a development force for filmmakers, a development resource for filmmakers, but you're also helping to develop the industry, the Faith and Family Filmmakers industry. And for that, we all owe you a debt of gratitude. And probably the best way we can repay you is by signing up as members of your network.
Yeah,
So
come
exciting.
and participate. That's going to make the biggest difference.
So Jeffrey and Jacqueline Witt, let me be the first to thank you for joining us on the Faith and Filmmakers podcast. That probably feels weird for you to hear.
It does.
We appreciate it. Hey, we'll be back next time. We're going to come back. We're going to dive into what you guys are doing in 2025 and beyond. That's going to be very exciting.
Big
so make sure, big announcements coming. So make sure you attend. And it's a celebration too. We're going to get a party hat. We're going to have a little horn. We're going to have some music pumping. 100th episode coming up next. So we'll see you guys then. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for listening to the Faith and Family Filmmakers podcast. If you've been enjoying this podcast, take a moment to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast player so you don't miss an episode. And if you'd like to support the production of this podcast, you can leave a tip at faffpodcast.com/support. Bringing filmmakers together for faith and family.